Some programming guidelines. First, remember to document and comment your code properly and extensively. All systems we develop will need to be maintained for years to come. All projects we start will be developed as a team. Thus, it is very important to document the software and comment the code. Use triple slashes before objects, variables, and classes. This will help you create the comments with the XML documentation syntax that will help IntelliSense work properly, and you could even do automatic documentation. Use to-do syntax in comments to mark where more work is needed. The //to-do syntax will allow you to use the Visual Studio tools to find correct locations and keep track of things to do. Add links and website addresses to your comments. For example, you can add the address to a tutorial or explanations of an algorithm. This will help your fellow developers to understand why you did what you did. Use standard in naming methods, classes, and variables. Use camel case starting with a capital letter for public properties, methods, and classes. Use camel case starting with a lower letter for private variables. For private class variables, follow the name with an underscore. When applicable, use getX and setX as the method names. However, use C# properties always when possible. Remember to use tools to keep your team updated on progress and help you work together. First, every project should have a todo.txt file that explains what is required to do next. This should be a simple text file. Also, every project must have a changelog.txt. When you update the code, you must write down the date and what you have done in the changelog.txt file. For code sharing, Visual Studio Online is a very useful website. Finally, use Skype and communicate with your team in a group chat. Rename and save the group in your Skype system. Try to avoid direct communication between persons to help manage communications and keep everyone updated. So use groups. Skype screen sharing is also very useful for design and discussing the next steps of the project. When communicating about the project, remember the famous advice: form follows function. This means you should first decide and design the functionality. Only after that you can discuss the technology, the form of the program. Functionality is 90% of the project, and technology is only the remaining 10%. Most things can be done with any technology. It will be helpful to focus only on the functionality first, and only after everything is designed to choose the correct tools and technology for the job, based on the required functionality. Use the boomerang technique for discussions. First, listen to the idea, then explain the idea back with your own words. Discuss if it is understood correctly. Only after that, feeding back the idea or explaining back the idea is the time for questions. When discussing software requirements, it would be a good idea to break the discussion into separate parts. First, the initial idea. Second, the situation and reasons for making the software in the first place. Third, the task. What kind of software are we going to make? Fourth, what we want to accomplish with the software. Fifth, are there any plans and instructions for the design and the make of the software? And finally, we should need to check we are on the same page, we have the same understanding of the project, and how can we keep track of each other's understanding during the project, how we make sure we are all the time on the same page. Only after discussing these issues could we start discussing what tools and technologies should we use. Discussing technology can be difficult. Foreign accents make the names more difficult to grasp. Understanding the context can be difficult. Thus, it is very important to separate technological discussion from the functional discussion. Also remember to speak very clearly and slowly when discussing technology. For example, try to listen to this. I will use .NET with C# 4.5.1 and Entity Framework based on UML with Lingu and so on. It's pretty difficult to follow, even if you know what technologies I am supposed to talk about. Remember to always use the full names for things. For example, interface could mean many different things in different contexts. UI is more precise, but user interface is the most easy to understand. When designing software, you start by describing the most important use cases. Next, develop ideas for creating a software to facilitate the use cases. Then move on to the data structure, using UML, the Uniform Modeling Language. After the data structure, move to user interface. This will help keep the development process visible and it will be easier to give feedback. Remember to keep updating the user interface during the development before doing the backend logic. This way you can all the time check if the software is going in the right direction and if it's going to facilitate the use cases and will answer the reason for making the software in the first place. Finally, always remember to keep discussions concrete. Use and update the UML model and start design with simple user interfaces. Try to keep the technological solutions only as an afterthought to functionality, what is required from the software.